The sky was a sea of fire. Elias gripped the flight controls with both hands. The shuttle shook violently as it fell through the alien planet's atmosphere. Alarms blared from every direction. Lights flashed red across the control panel. The navigation system was dead. The radio had gone silent minutes ago. He had tried to avoid the crash, but gravity had one dot now. All he could do was try to stay alive. Outside, strange trees rushed past the windows. Blue leaves, purple skies. Everything looked wrong. The shuttle clipped the top of a rocky hill and spun sideways. Metal screamed as it tore through thick jungle vines. Then came the impact. The world turned white, then black dot, silence dot. Elias opened his eyes slowly. His body was pinned against the pilot's seat. Smoke filled the air. Something was burning nearby. His ears rang. His arms ached. But he was alive. He unbuckled himself and fell to the floor. The shuttle had split open. Half the ship was gone. Fire crackled around the wreckage. Sparks danced in the wind. He coughed and staggered outside. The jungle was unlike anything he had seen before. The trees were tall and smooth, glowing faintly in the fading light. The ground was soft and damp. Insects buzzed in the distance, and something big moved in the shadows. Elias scanned the crash site. He wasn't alone on this mission. There were 2 others on board, but he couldn't see them. Then he heard it. A soft voice, weak, pained. He turned toward the sound and pushed aside a broken wing of the ship. Metal groaned under his weight. Smoke stung his eyes. He kept crawling forward until he saw her. A woman, young, pale skin smeared with blood. Her clothes were torn. Her leg was bent in the wrong direction, pinned beneath a heavy beam. She was still breathing. Barely. Elias rushed to her side. "Hey, stay with me," he said, his voice low and calm. "You're okay. I'm here." Her eyes fluttered open, blue, sharp, and filled with pain. She tried to speak, but only let out a gasp. Elias knew he had to move fast. The leg was broken badly. If he didn't act, she could lose it. Or worse. He looked around. No medkit, no tools, just wreckage and jungle. He took off his jacket, ripped it into strips, and made a rough brace using a metal rod from the ship. He knelt beside her and took a breath. "This is going to hurt," he whispered gently. He placed one hand below her knee and the other above. He counted to 3 in his head. Then he pushed. A horrible sound came from her leg, a mix of bone and flesh. She screamed, but only for a second. Then, something happened. Her hand shot up. She grabbed the front of his shirt with surprising strength. Her fingers dug into the fabric, holding on like her life depended on it. Her voice was low, barely more. Then a breath. "Don't let go." The look in her eyes stopped him cold. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper. Trust. Elias swallowed hard. He nodded once, slowly. "I won't," he said, and then her hand fell back to the ground. She was unconscious. He checked her pulse. Still there. Faint, but steady. For a moment, Elias just sat there, his hands shaking, his heart racing. He didn't even know her name. He didn't know where she was from or why she was on the ship, but her voice stayed in his head. "Don't let go." He repeated it to himself as he lifted her carefully from the ground. Her body was light, but limp. Her leg was now straight, tied tightly in the brace he had made. He found a broken panel from the ship and used it as a stretcher. It took everything he had to pull her across the dirt and into a small space beneath what was left of the shuttle. He covered her with a heat blanket from the supply case and sat beside her. Night was falling fast. The jungle grew darker. The trees glowed softly now. The wind carried strange sounds, low growls, snaps of branches. Something was out there. Elias picked up a sharp metal shard and held it like a knife. He stayed awake all night, watching the trees, listening, waiting. She didn't wake, but every now and then, she moved slightly. Her breathing stayed slow, calm, steady. He kept hearing her words. Don't let go. He didn't plan to. Not now, not ever. But deep in the jungle, something was moving, slowly, quietly, watching them, waiting for a moment to strike. And Elias knew, this was only the beginning. The jungle didn't sleep. Elias sat in silence, his back against the wrecked hull of the shuttle. The night air was thick and warm. Moisture clung to his skin like sweat. His ears stayed sharp, catching every rustle, every distant growl, every snap of a branch. He gripped a jagged metal rod like a blade. His eyes kept drifting to the girl. She was still unconscious. Her chest rose and fell slowly beneath the silver heat blanket. Her lips had lost some color, but her breathing was steady. Her leg, wrapped in his rough brace, hadn't moved. Elias didn't know her name, but he knew he wasn't alone. Something was out there. He had seen movement, just a glimpse in the trees. Glowing eyes, slender shapes, quiet, watching. He didn't know what they were, but he could feel it. They were hunting. Not like animals, like predators with purpose. Elias stayed awake the whole night. He didn't blink for long. Every sound made him flinch, but nothing came close. Not yet. By morning, the jungle had changed. Strange flowers bloomed near the crash site, opening in silence. The glowing trees dimmed as sunlight broke through the misty sky. The shadows became clearer, and finally she stirred. Her eyes blinked open, confused and afraid. Her head turned slowly. She saw Elias, sitting just a few feet away, watching her, with tired eyes. "Hey," he said softly. "You're okay. I'm Elias. I was the pilot." She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. He reached over and handed her a small packet of water from the supply case. She sipped slowly. Then she spoke. "Raylan," she whispered. "That's my name." Elias nodded. "Raylan, nice to meet you." She looked down at her leg and winced. "You said it." "Yeah," Elias replied. "It was bad. But I think it's stable now." There was a pause. Then she looked him in the eyes and said, "Thank you for not letting go." Elias smiled, just a little. "You asked me not to." But before she could respond, they both heard it, a low clicking sound, coming from the trees. Raylan's face turned pale. Her body went rigid. "You heard that too," Elias whispered. She nodded slowly. "They followed us." "Who?" She hesitated, then said, "Not what. Who?" Elias stood and stepped to the edge of the clearing. He scanned the jungle. The trees looked still, but the sounds hadn't stopped. Clicking, then silence. Clicking again. Closer. "They've been watching us since the crash," she said. "Testing." "Testing what?" She swallowed hard. "You." Elias turned. "Me. They don't understand humans," she explained. "They don't understand why we protect others. Why we risk our lives for people we barely know." Elias looked confused. "How do you know that?" There was a long pause. Then Raylan looked at him and said quietly, "Because I'm part of them." Elias stepped back slightly. "What does that mean?" She looked down. Her voice was soft. "My mother was human. My father wasn't. I was born on a science station near this planet, raised among humans, but my blood is mixed." Elias stared at her, half human, half alien. She continued, "They never accepted me. Not fully, not there, and not here." He sat down slowly, processing it all. "You knew they were here," he said. "You knew the ship would crash." "I didn't know we'd crash," she replied, "but I knew they were watching, waiting. My presence triggered them. So why did they let you survive?" he asked. "They didn't care about me," Raylan said. "They were waiting to see what you'd do." Elias frowned. "Me? Yes," she said. "They wanted to see if a human would stay behind, if you would help someone who was different." Elias laughed, but it was a tired, bitter sound. "Well, I guess I passed the test." Raylan didn't smile. "No," she said. "There. Not done yet." The clicking sounds returned. Louder now. Elias stood quickly. He held the metal rod tightly. Shapes appeared in the trees, tall, thin, moving like shadows. They had no clear faces. Their bodies shifted like they were made of smoke and glass. Their eyes glowed faint green, silent, watching. Elias stepped in, front of Raylan. "What do they want?" he asked. "To know if you'll run," she said, "or fight." Elias shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." One of the creatures stepped forward. It moved slowly, almost gliding across the forest floor. It stopped a few meters away and tilted its head. Elias didn't back down. "I don't care who or what you are," he said clearly. "She's with me. You don't touch her." The creature didn't move, but behind Elias, Raylan whispered something in a strange language, soft syllables, musical and sharp. The creature blinked, then, without a sound, it turned and walked back into the jungle. The others followed, in seconds. They were gone. Silence returned. Elias turned to Raylan. "What did you say?" She looked up at him. "I told them you chose to stay, even when you didn't know what I was. That means something to them." He sat down again, breathing hard. "I'm just doing what's right," he said. Ray-Lin reached out and touched his hand. "You have no idea how rare that is." He looked at her in that moment. She didn't look alien. She looked human, afraid, wounded, but brave and beautiful. "They'll come back, won't they?" he asked. She nodded. "They always do." "Then we'll be ready," he said. He gave her a half smile and gently squeezed her hand. "I told you, I'm not letting go." She smiled back, weak but real. The jungle around them went quiet again. But Elias knew one thing for sure. They weren't alone, and the test wasn't over. The rain came without warning, soft at first, then heavier. It rolled down the sides of the broken shuttle and soaked into the earth around them. The jungle shifted with the storm. Leaves curled, strange flowers closed, the glowing trees dimmed, as if holding their breath. Inside the shelter, Elias sat beside Raylan. He had wrapped the last food ration in a scrap of foil and offered it to her. She took small bites, chewing slowly. Her strength was still low, but her eyes held more focus. Now, more light. "How's your leg?" he asked, gently. "Hurts," she said, with a small smile, "but less than before." "That's a win." She looked at him. "You haven't eaten." "I'm not hungry," Elias replied. That was a lie. His stomach had been growling for hours. But seeing her alive mattered more. He could go another day. Maybe, outside. Thunder echoed across the sky. Raylan leaned her head back against the shuttle wall. "They'll return." Elias didn't ask who she meant. He already knew the Watchers. The ones made of smoke and light. The ones testing him. "Let them," he said. "I'm not afraid." She turned to him. "You should be." He met her gaze. "I'm more afraid of losing someone again." Her expression softened. "You lost someone before?" Elias looked away for a moment. Then he nodded. "Her name was Lyra. She was a medic on my last mission. We got caught in a collapse during a rescue. I made it out. She didn't." He paused. "I was the one holding the rope." Raylan watched him carefully. "You blame yourself." "I was supposed to pull her up," he said, "but I let go, just for a second, and that was enough." Silence filled the space between them. Rain tapped softly on the metal above. Then she said, "You didn't let go of me." Elias looked at her. "No," he whispered, "and I won't." Her hand brushed his lightly, just for a second, but it was enough to send warmth through his tired body. They sat together for a long time without speaking. Outside, the jungle came alive again. The rain slowed. Creatures made clicking sounds in the distance. Somewhere far off, something let out a deep call that echoed through the trees. "Why do they care what you do?" Elias asked. "Why test me?" Raylan hesitated, then said, "Because they don't understand love." He frowned. What do you mean? She shifted, pulling the blanket closer. Their kind evolved without emotion. No families, no bonding. They live by logic and survival. When they first saw humans, they didn't understand why we help each other, why we sacrifice. Elias listened carefully. They think it's weakness, she continued, but they're curious. So they create tests to see if what we feel is real, if it holds under pressure, under fear. Elias leaned back and let out a slow breath. So I'm some kind of experiment. You were, she said, but not anymore. He looked at her again. What changed? Raylan smiled softly. You passed. Elias chuckled quietly. Didn't feel like a test. Felt like surviving. Sometimes they're the same thing, she replied. Then her smile faded. There's something else you need to know. His chest tightened. What is it? She hesitated, then spoke. If they decide you're a threat, they won't just watch. Elias's face turned serious. Then we'll fight. You don't understand, she said. They're not just strong. They exist in more than one form. They can move without sound, disappear, reshape. If they want to erase you, they can. Elias stayed quiet for a long moment. I'm not leaving you, Ray, he said. She looked at him, her voice dropped. Even if staying gets you killed. He nodded once, firm. Even then, her eyes watered, slightly. You shouldn't care this much, she whispered. We just met. He smiled sadly. Maybe, but something about you. It feels like I've known you forever. Her voice was barely above a whisper. That's how I feel too. The moment hung between them, quiet, fragile, honest. Elias reached for her hand and held it gently. They sat like that until the sky turned gold. The storm had passed. The jungle shifted again, brighter now. The trees opened wide. Creatures flew between branches. Everything glowed softly in the morning light. Then a low hum filled the air. Elias stood quickly. Do you hear that? Raylan nodded. They're coming. Shapes appeared at the edge of the clearing. At least 6, maybe more, tall, glowing. Their bodies shimmered like glass, catching sunlight. Their movements were smooth, deliberate. Elias stepped in front of Raylan again. One of the creatures came forward. It stopped just a few feet away. Then it did something strange. It knelt. Elias froze. The creature slowly placed something on the ground, a small glowing stone. Then it rose, turned, and vanished into the trees. The others followed, one by one, silent as mist. Elias bent down and picked up the stone. It pulsed softly in his hand. Raylan spoke from behind him. They've accepted you. He looked back at her. Why? Because you stayed, she said. Because you didn't let go. Elias held the stone to his chest and looked up at the sky. Something had changed. Not just in the jungle, but inside him, inside her. Between them, whatever test this was, it had become something more, a connection neither of them fully understood, yet, but both believed in. The bond was real, and it was only just beginning. Elias held the glowing stone tightly. It pulsed like a heartbeat, warm, alive. He didn't understand its power, but he could feel it. It wasn't just a gift. It was a message, a warning behind him. Raylan shifted under the shelter. Her leg was healing slowly, but her body was still weak. Her skin looked pale against the silver heat blanket, but her eyes were wide, alert, focused. They're changing their approach, she said softly. Elias turned. What do you mean? They've moved from observation to contact. He walked over and sat beside her. So what now? She looked up at the sky, which was turning deep orange with the second sun rising. Now they speak. Elias blinked. They talk. Not the way we do, she explained. But they will try. They're beginning to see you as something different. Not just human. Elias raised an eyebrow. Different how? As someone they can't predict, she replied. Someone they don't want as an enemy, or lose as an example. He frowned, unsure if that was a good thing. Then, without warning, a strange energy filled the air. The jungle went quiet. Every bird stopped flying. Every insect went still. Elias stood up, gripping the glowing stone in one hand and his metal blade in the other. From the trees, they came again. But this time, they didn't stay hidden. 6 figures, taller than before, clearer, more defined. Their bodies flickered between solid and transparent. Their shapes shifted constantly, like water held in a mold. Their glowing eyes didn't blink. One stepped forward. It stopped exactly 3 feet away. Then, it spoke, not with words, but inside Ilias's mind. You chose to protect the half-blood. Elias flinched. The voice wasn't loud. It was calm, but it echoed inside his skull like thunder. She's not a thing, Elias said out loud. Her name is Raylin. The creature tilted its head. You speak with pride. Humans often do. Elias stepped forward, raising his chin. We speak with feeling, that's the difference. The voice responded again. You feel loyalty too. One who is neither fully yours, nor fully ours. Why? Elias looked back at Ray-Lin. She was watching him. Her lips parted, her expression soft. He turned back to the creature. Because she's worth it. Because she matters. And because no one should have to face this place alone. There was a pause. The figures behind the first one shimmered slightly. Then another voice entered. His mind different, softer. You risked your own survival to keep her alive. You resisted fear. You chose connection. Elias nodded. Yes, I did, and I would again. The first figure raised its hand. Light gathered above its palm. A floating pattern formed like a map. It showed the wreckage. The jungle? A signal tower glowing in the distance. Your rescue ship will arrive in 3 cycles, the voice said. It will scan for survivors. When it detects her, it will report her DNA. Raylin sat up straighter, alarmed. They'll know I'm not fully human. They'll flag you, Elias said. They might take you. She nodded slowly. Or worse, they'll label me a threat. The figure stepped closer. You must choose, the voice said. Leave her behind and return home, or take her with you, and risk war. Elias stared at them. He didn't answer right away. He turned to Raylin, her eyes filled with pain, but she didn't cry. She didn't ask him to stay. She didn't beg. She only whispered one word, decide, and he did, without hesitation. He turned back to the beings and said with a clear voice, I'm taking her with me. The jungle fell silent again. Then the figure nodded once. Then you carry our message, it said. Not all strength is found in weapons. Sometimes, strength is in the hand that doesn't let go. Light shot from the stone in Ilias's hand. It wrapped around his fingers, burned into his skin like a soft brand, then vanished. Raylin gasped. They marked you. What does that mean? He asked. She answered softly. They've chosen you as a witness. The lead figure began to fade. Its form turned back into mist. The bond you formed, it whispered, will shape what comes next. And then they were gone. The jungle noise returned slowly. The birds, the wind, the distant cries of unseen beasts. Elias dropped to his knees, breathing hard. He looked at Raylin. Are you okay? She nodded. You made the hard choice. He smiled. The only choice. She stared at the mark on his hand, then reached out and placed her fingers over it. Do you understand what this means? She asked. He met her gaze. No, it means you're part of something bigger now, she said. Not just between you and me, but between species, between worlds. He touched her hand. Then we'll face it together. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You're not what I expected, Elias. He smiled. You're exactly what I didn't know I needed. They sat there as the suns rose higher. The jungle shimmered with life, but something had changed. The Watchers were no longer enemies. They had made contact. They had chosen him, and soon, the rest of humanity would hear that choice. Elias knew the next part would be harder. When the rescue ship came, when Earth found out who Raylin really was, when they saw the mark on his hand, not everyone would understand. Some would reject her. Some would call him a traitor. But he didn't care, because she had said, "Don't let go," and he had listened. The jungle was quiet again. Too quiet. Elias stood at the edge of the crash site, looking up at the sky. A faint shimmer appeared far above, like a ripple in water. The rescue ship had entered orbit. 3 cycles. That's what the beings had said. 3 planetary rotations. Now, 1 was left. They had 1 day. Then everything would change. Behind him, Raylin sat under the shelter, trying to sharpen a piece of scrap metal. Her hands moved slowly, but with purpose. The strength in her fingers was returning. Her eyes stayed focused, but Elias could see the fear behind them. He walked over and sat beside her. "They're coming," he said. She didn't look up. No, you don't have to go with me." That made her stop. She turned her head and met his gaze. "Are you trying to let go?" "No," he said quickly. "But I want you to have a choice. You've always been running, hiding. If you stay here, they might leave you alone." She looked down at her hands. "They might, but I'd still be alone." Elias leaned forward. "If you come with me, Earth might not accept you." She nodded. "I know. They might take you from me. I know that too." He paused. "So why are you still here?" Raylin gave him a soft smile. "Because you didn't let go." Elias felt the weight of those words settle deep inside his chest. She wasn't just choosing a path. She was choosing him, and he was choosing her. But Earth wasn't ready for someone like her. Not yet. He knew how people could be. Afraid of what they didn't understand. Quick to label. Even quicker to destroy. Still, he wasn't going to lie. Not to her. Not to himself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the glowing stone, the one given to him by the beings. The mark it had left on his hand was still there, faint and pulsing softly. Raylin's eyes rested on it. "You can still go back alone," she said. "Use that to prove you were part of something bigger. Maybe they'll listen to you." Elias shook his head. "Not without you." She looked at him, silent for a moment. "You're risking everything," she said. "So are you." The tension broke a little. They both smiled, tired but honest. Then Elias pulled out a metal tablet from the emergency case. The signal booster was still intact. "I can activate the beacon," he said. "Once I do, the rescue ship will land at the next sunrise." She touched his arm gently. "Then do it." He hesitated. "You're sure?" Raylin nodded. "If I run now, I'll always be running." Elias turned the dial. The beacon hummed to life. A red light blinked. Message sent. There was no turning back now. As the sky darkened, Elias set up the fire again. The temperature dropped quickly at night. The jungle always seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the suns. He gathered dry branches and added them one by one. Raylin watched the flames flicker. "You know," she said softly, "when I was younger, I used to dream about Earth, about oceans, forests, cities that touch the clouds." Elias smiled. "They're real, all of them. But in my dreams," she said, "people never stared. No one looked at me like I was a mistake." He didn't speak. He just reached for her hand. She took it without hesitation. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said. Elias looked at her. "My father," she continued, "wasn't just an alien. He was one of the Watchers, a leader." Elias raised his eyebrows. "They sent him to study humans, but he fell in love with my mother." She looked down at their hands. "He broke their laws to be with her. They punished him, erased his form. My mother died soon after. I survived, barely." Elias whispered, "I'm sorry. I was raised by scientists, tested, watched, always reminded. I didn't belong. You belong now, Elias said firmly. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Do I? You do to me. She leaned closer. He held her. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the Watchers, not Earth, not what would happen next. Just this, just them. Then from above, a sound broke the peace. A low rumble, a streak of light across the dark sky. The rescue ship was descending. Elias stood up, helping Raylan rise carefully. You ready? He asked. No, she said, her voice shaking slightly. But I'm coming anyway. They gathered what little gear they had left, a data pad, a water pack, a makeshift crutch. Elias supported her as they made their way through the jungle. The crash site was behind them now. Ahead, a clearing had formed. The ship would land there. They walked in silence for several minutes, then stopped at the edge of the trees. The rescue ship hovered above the field. Its lights lit up the jungle like day. Soldiers moved in formation. Drones scanned the area. The noise was deafening. Elias could already feel the tension. They weren't here just to save him. They had seen the signal, and maybe more. He turned to Raylan. If anything happens, he whispered, don't speak. Let me do the talking. She nodded. They stepped into the clearing. Instantly, rifles were raised. Lights pointed at them. A voice shouted, identify yourselves. Elias lifted his hands. Lieutenant Elias Ward, pilot of Shuttle 92. We crashed during re-entry. The soldiers moved closer. One of them pointed at Raylan. Who is she? Elias kept his voice calm. She's with me. She's injured. Another soldier looked at his marked hand. What's that? Elias answered clearly. Proof. The team leader stepped forward. He wore a command badge and a stern expression. You were alone when we tracked you. I wasn't alone, Elias said. You just didn't look close enough. The commander eyed Raylan. Is she human? Elias stepped in front of her. She's not your concern. She's under my protection. Tension filled the air. Raylan whispered. They're afraid. Elias didn't move. Let them be. They'll learn. The commander lowered his rifle slightly. You'll need to come with us. Both of you, Elias nodded. We will, but I'm warning you now. If anyone tries to separate us, he raised his marked hand, you'll be answering to more than just me. The commander looked at the glowing symbol, and for the first time, he hesitated. Then he said, understood. Elias turned to Ray-Lynn. She was shaking, but smiling. You chose me, she whispered. He wrapped his arm around her. I always will. The rescue ship lifted into the sky, its engines roaring like thunder. Elias and Raylan stood at the edge of the command deck, watching the jungle fade away below them. Through the reinforced window, the alien world looked peaceful now, calm, almost quiet. But neither of them felt peace. Raylan sat slowly onto the metal bench, gripping the armrest. Her legs still ached. Her body was weak. But that wasn't what troubled her. It was the way the crew looked at her. Whispers, glances, fear hidden behind polished uniforms. Elias stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He had noticed too. Every step they took inside the ship, someone stared. Not with curiosity, with suspicion, with judgment. They had been given a private medbay, not for comfort, for containment. 2 guards stood outside the door, always watching. Elias paced the room like a caged animal. They don't trust us, he said. They don't trust me, Raylan corrected. He stopped and looked at her. They don't know you. They don't want to, she whispered. She wasn't angry, just tired. Like someone used to being seen as wrong before anyone asked who she really was. Elias walked over and knelt beside her. They'll understand. She met his eyes. Will they? He hesitated, then shook his head. Maybe not all of them, but someone will. Someone has to. Before she could answer, the door opened. A tall officer stepped inside. She wore a black command coat with silver trim. Her voice was sharp and cold. Lieutenant Ward. You're ordered to report to debriefing. Now. Elias stood tall. I'm not leaving her. The officer frowned. This isn't a request. She's injured. She's secured. That word made Elias's blood boil. She's not a threat. The officer didn't respond. Just turned and walked away. Elias looked at Raylan. I'll be back, I promise. She nodded. I trust you. He stepped out. The guards stayed. The door sealed behind him. The medbay fell silent. Raylan leaned back and closed her eyes, but her heart didn't rest. She could feel something in the air, a tension, a shift. Something was coming. In the debrief room, Elias sat across from 3 officers. The room was bright. Too bright. The table cold. The questions colder. They didn't ask how he survived. They asked what she was. He told them the truth. Half human, half alien, kind, brave, smart, but they didn't listen to her name, only her origin, only the difference. They showed scans, her DNA, her energy readings. The symbol burned into Elias's hand. This mark, one officer said, is alien property. No, Elias replied. It's a message. A message from what? From something bigger than us. Do you know what you're carrying? Elias leaned forward. Yes, I'm carrying someone who trusted me when she had every reason not to, and I won't let you bury that under fear. Silence followed. Then, a final question. If we decide she's a risk to Earth, will you stand down? Elias stared at them, then stood up. No, and he walked out. Back in the medbay, the alarms began to sound. Raylan sat up fast, her instincts sharp. Then came the voice over the ship's system. Containment breach, level 4. External boarding detected. She froze. That wasn't human tech. That was Watcher tech. She grabbed a crutch and limped to the door. It opened before she touched it, and standing there was not a guard. It was a Watcher, shifting, glowing, tall. She stepped back. Why are you here? The voice entered her mind. Your bond was real. His sacrifice was pure. But the others will not allow your return. They fear what you are. I already knew that, she said. So we give you one chance. The voice said, we will take you now. Quietly. You will live, but apart. She stared at him. No, she said, not without him. If you stay, the voice said, they will take him. They will punish him for protecting you. Raylan shook her head. He chose me. I choose him. The Watcher moved forward, its form flickering. Then there must be proof. One act. Selfless, beyond fear. Then the others may accept. She narrowed her eyes. What act? But the voice faded, and the Watcher was gone. The alarms stopped. Elias rushed into the room seconds later, panting, covered in sweat. What happened? He asked. Raylan didn't answer. She limped toward him and placed a hand on his chest. Elias, what would you do if I disappeared? He frowned. What kind of question is that? Just answer. He took a deep breath. I'd tear the sky apart to find you. She smiled softly. That's what I thought. He held her hand. What's going on? But she didn't tell him. Because the choice was already made. That night, the ship entered Earth's orbit. Raylan stood at the observation window, watching the blue planet rise. It was beautiful, the place she had dreamed of. She reached into her pocket and touched the glowing stone. Then she turned and left the room quietly. Elias was asleep. Finally, after hours of fighting command and protocols, she walked through the halls like a shadow until she reached the engine bay. She stepped inside and waited. Soon, the alarms would sound again. But not for her, for him, for his protection. Because when the crew woke, she would be gone, and Elias would be safe. That was her sacrifice, not to run, but to walk away, so he could live free, so he wouldn't have to fight anymore. Elias woke to red lights flashing. Unauthorized pod launch. Section B. He ran. sprinted through the halls. He already knew who it was by the time he reached the launch bay. It was too late. A small pod had already vanished into the stars. A single message was left on the console. He opened it. Voice played softly. I told you I'd stay, but now, it's my turn to protect you. I'm not letting go, Elias. I'm just letting you live. His chest tightened. He dropped to his knees. Tears rolled down his face. The command team rushed in asking questions, but he didn't answer. He stared at the stars and whispered her name. 3 days had passed. Elias hadn't slept, not truly. He moved through Earth's military base like a ghost. People stared, whispered, stepped aside when he walked by. Some called him a hero, some called him reckless, but none of it mattered, because she was gone. Raylan had launched herself into the void to protect him. She had made the final choice, one that tore them apart. One she didn't even give him the chance to argue, and she'd left only one message, a voice, a whisper. I'm just letting you live. Elias listened to it every night. He sat alone now, in the base's command center, staring at the transmission logs. Dozens of coded signals, ship traffic, civilian broadcasts, but nothing from her. No trace of her pod, no word from the watchers. He tapped the mark on his hand. It still pulsed, dim but present. He hoped it meant she was alive, but hope was running thin. The door behind him opened. General Voss stepped inside, silver-haired, cold-eyed, known for seeing emotion as a weakness. You've been granted audience, she said flatly. Elias turned. With who? The World Assembly. He stood slowly. Why? Because you've become a symbol. And symbols, she said with a small sigh, make people nervous. The hall was massive. Bright screens lined the curved walls. Leaders from every major nation watched from their chambers, their faces projected like statues. Soldiers guarded every exit. Elias stood alone in the center. They didn't waste time. A voice echoed through the room. You aided a non-human hybrid in breaching planetary security. Do you deny this? Elias shook his head. No, you brought her to Earth orbit without clearance. Yes. She escaped without authorization. She wasn't a prisoner, Elias snapped. She made a choice. A murmur passed through the room. Another voice came. Why did she leave? To protect me? From us? Elias took a breath. Yes. Silence followed. Then a new voice, one quieter. Why risk so much for her? He stepped forward, because she's more human than half the people I've met. That hit the room hard. He didn't stop. She had every reason to run. Every reason to hate us, but she stayed. She trusted me. She saved my life. And when you made it clear that you'd never accept her, she did what no one else had the courage to do. She left, so I could stay. He raised his marked hand. They gave me this so I could carry a message. You asked what it means. He looked straight into the camera. It means love is not weakness. Loyalty is not a crime. And humanity isn't just about DNA. It's about who you stand for, who you protect, and what you're willing to sacrifice. He paused, his voice shaking now. You think she was the outsider, but maybe we are. No one spoke, no one moved. Then a soft sound filled the chamber, a chime, a signal. One of the technicians scrambled at the side screen. Sir, we're receiving something. From who? The general asked. He stared at the console. It's watcher frequency. Gasps rippled through the room. The technician turned to Elias. It's for you. The screen flickered, and then there she was. Ray-Lynn, alive, floating in soft light, aboard a watcher vessel. Her eyes tired, her voice clear. This message is for Earth. For those who fear what they don't understand. She looked into the camera, directly at them, and at him. You judged me before you knew me. You feared me before I could speak. But I forgive you, because I believe in what Elias believed in. She took a slow breath. In us, the screen widened, revealing not just her, but watchers. Dozens. All, standing behind her, all watching, all silent. She spoke again. We offer peace, but it must start with truth. She raised her hand, and in it, she held another stone, glowing like his linked bound. The bond was real, she said, and we never let go. The signal ended. Silence returned, but something had shifted. Elias stood tall, waiting. Then, a single voice broke the silence. A woman from the Pacific. Elias leaned forward on the screen. I believe her. Another followed. Humanity is more than blood. Then another dot, and another dot, until the room echoed with agreement. Elias felt his chest tighten, not with fear, with something brighter, braver. The general approached him. We'll authorize open contact. He turned to her. What about Ray Lynn? She looked at him. We owe her a welcome. A month later, the Watcher vessel entered Earth's orbit. People gathered by the millions to see it. Children waved flags. Scientists cried. Soldiers stood at attention. The ramp opened, and Raylan stepped onto human soil for the first time. She wore a simple cloak, her mark glowing gently on her hand. But her eyes searched only for one thing. Him. Elias pushed through the crowd. Straight toward her. No guards, no fear, just him. He stopped a foot away. They stared at each other. Neither said a word, until finally, Raylan whispered, I didn't let go, and Elias pulled her into his arms. I know. People cheered, the world changed, and a new chapter of humanity began. Not with power, not with fear, but with a bond, one that never broke.